Please feel free to. Okay, now we're going to have the choir sing a few songs, 3 songs.
A sailor from England remarked to a foe,
the reason we win is we pray as we go.
But we pray as well, just look at our dead.
Ah, but we pray in English.
The Englishman said,
I, my, me, mine, 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 I, my, me, mine.
I had a little box when my Lord made me, and in that little box I did put a tree, a pony, a teddy bear, a bright green sled, everything around me that my eyes did see.
How can a little box ever hold a sled? A pony and a tree puzzles my poor head.
It can't, my friend, put in a tiny baby's mind. This mighty world becomes a little box instead. Well, as I grew older, my box grew too. Held airplanes and ships and a birch canoe, and school books, a foreign trip and college proms. Good times and friends aplenty, yes, and also you. But somehow in this box would only fit one school, one family,
one country,
And one social rule.
and certainly one church, for only my way's right.
and anyone with other ways is just a fool. Well, so I used to think, but now I must confess, at judging fools I wasn't any great success. Truth somehow lived without me, though I called it mine. What box could hold the world? It's just preposterous. What is love? Is it only ours? Or does love whisper in the flowers? Surely we, children of this world, could not love by our own powers. What is joy? Is it just a dream? Or does joy laugh in every stream? Are the clouds mindless after all? Or is joy all nature's theme? God is dead, so men say. Can they see all life's display? Not a church binds him as its own. Not a creed makes him fully known. Foolish we, if we limit him. Every atom is his throne. What is love? Is it only ours? Or does love whisper in the flowers? Surely we, children of this world, could not love by our own powers. What is love? What is love? Is it love we touch in the flowers?
Let me finish with peace.
Peace. Now,
I would like to sing one song with you all. Peace. Peace gave us the mountains. Peace gave us the sky. Nightly when starlight enfolds us, peace is its lullaby. Amen. Amen. Peace gave us the morning. Peace gave us the sun. Bird songs that call us to welcome day and fresh labors begun. Amen. Amen. Peace gave us the seasons. Peace gave us the rain. Cool clouds that gathered to bless us. Mist hands that soothe away pain. Amen. Peace gave us our heart's love. Peace gave us our smiles. Rays of thy presence within us. Light that all strife reconciles. Amen. Amen. Please sing Amen with us. Amen. Amen. Thank you. I was here 50 years ago in 1960, 52 years ago. It was then called Madras. I was staying in a hotel, and it was the reverse monsoon. I was not able to move anywhere, and I wanted very much to go into seclusion before I returned to Calcutta to resume my duties in the organization there. And at the end of my meditation in the morning, I asked Babaji, please to help me to go to find some place of seclusion. And I went down to the restaurant and was having my breakfast when a man sitting at the table next to me, he said, I have a house in Kodaikanal. I would like to offer it to you for seclusion. I won't be there for 10 days. So I got my beautiful seclusion. In many wonderful ways, Babaji has guided this work. And through these masters, he is Amar, and his power has gone to all religions and all avatars who come into this world to help. And I am deeply grateful to be able to represent him as well as my guru and my entire line of gurus. Many people believe today that we are still in Kali Yuga, that Kali Yuga is supposed to last another 430,000 years. Well, I think that if that were true, we would end up all like worms by the end of 430 1,000 years. It is not Kali Yuga. Swami Sri Yukteswar, my Param Guru, explained that during Kali Yuga, a false calculation came into the picture, and people misunderstood a day of, they thought that a year was a day of Brahma, not a day of Brahma. I forget the expression. And anyway, he said that actually Kali Yuga lasts only 1,200 years. 1,200 descending, 1,200 ascending. He said that in 1900, we came fully into Dwapara Yuga. Dwapara Yuga is still a materialistic age, but now we don't see the kind of things that we used to see in the 2,000 years ago when people were butchering each other freely. Even today, in Spain and France even, they enjoy bullfighting. I don't think anybody in this country or in most countries would like bullfighting. We have a different consciousness today. We're not very kind, but we're kinder than that. And what I want to say is that we are in an age of energy. Now we see that people, a niece of mine wrote me and said that everywhere I go I hear the word energy. Energy is actually the reality beneath this wooden table here. All of matter is really only a vibration of energy. Matter doesn't exist except as an energy vibration. From there it becomes easier to understand that energy is probably only a manifestation of thoughts. And thoughts are only a manifestation of consciousness. This whole universe is a dream of God's. This whole universe is a manifestation of His consciousness. Now, Swami Shankaracharya, many years ago, more than 2,000 years ago, said that the nature of consciousness is not just consciousness, like a thing. It is Satchidananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. We are made of bliss. And that is why you and I, the only thing we really want in life is happiness, bliss on a lower octave. And even people who seek revenge and so on, they still want happiness, they just have misunderstood the meaning of happiness. All of life is a search for bliss. And we begin in the beginning of our incarnations. How long have you been coming back to this world? Quite possibly days of Brahma. People can find so many wonderful ways of getting into delusion. It really staggers the imagination. If this doesn't work, that doesn't work. This woman doesn't work, the other one won't. If this man doesn't suit me, another one might. It can go on forever. And when this planet exhausts its possibilities, there are countless other planets. This is only one planet in a vast universe. The universe is full of life everywhere. God's show is incredibly complex and yet wonderful. You know, it's an amazing thing. Jesus Christ said, suffer little children to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. And you think, children? What do they know about anything? The God has to be extremely sophisticated to be able to produce this vast universe. And yet, He is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. In that way, He is simple. If you can become as simple as a child, you will begin to understand, not childish, but without any sophisticated definitions and so on. The greatest thing you need to overcome is ego. Swami Vivekananda said it beautifully. He said, it's no doubt a good thing to be born into a religion, but it's a misfortune to die in one. He said that we need to grow beyond definitions. I grew up in a Christian church, And I found that their definition of God was utterly uninteresting, and I didn't want God because of that. I tried to find truth. My whole life was dedicated to seeking truth. And I sought it through science, I sought it through political systems, I sought it through inspiration in the arts. I sought it through every way I could imagine without God. I didn't seek it through money because I'd been born into that and I didn't like it. But I found that every road was a dead end. And finally I remember taking a long walk out into the night. And I said, there has to be a God. But if there's a God, what must he be? And my first thought was, well, he can't be a judge up there waiting for me to make a mistake so he can throw me into hell? No, what is making me ask this question? The fact that I am conscious. And if I am conscious, he must be consciousness. And if that is true, then my duty in this world is to open myself to that consciousness. And I remember coming back, I was living in an apartment with 4 other young men, and I was absolutely staggered. And I decided then my duty in life has to be to find God. I didn't know anything about Indian teachings. I didn't know anything about India. I didn't know anything about yoga. As far as I knew, it might be some kind of yogurt. But I decided I would go to a Brazilian jungle and become a hermit and seek God. And I thought maybe if I found God, I would at least have peace of mind. I would at least have greater awareness. But at this time in my life, people wonder, does God really listen to us? He listened to me. I didn't know how to pray to him. I didn't know anything. But God listened to my prayer anyway. He sent my father to a foreign country. The day I put my mother on the ship to go join my father, I went uptown New York and I found in a bookstore autobiography of a yogi. This is in 1948. I was only 22 years old. And I read that book and I found what joy you find when you can find in knowing God, what bliss you can find in knowing God. I was just, I tell you, absolutely overwhelmed. And I took the next bus from New York to Los Angeles. And when I met Yogananda, the first words I said to him were, I want to be your disciple. I would never have said that to anybody. I never dreamed of saying it. But in him I found someone who I knew I could trust. I knew he could guide me in a way that I had not been able to guide myself before. Religion in the New Age has to be an experiential knowledge. It cannot be merely theory. It cannot be dogma. We've got to get away from thinking that religion is based on beliefs. People believed that the world was flat for centuries. That didn't make it so. Your beliefs in God won't make him anything you want. He is, and you must understand who he is. And you can attune yourself to him. How? Because he is you. You're not separate from him. This is the wonderful thing in this age that we're living in. Now that we know that nothing is separate, that you're not separate from me, I'm not separate from God, we can begin to understand that he dreamed us. And if that is so, then our destiny has to be to merge into oneness with God. This is the goal of true religion. True religion is not Ganesha. It is not churches. It is not Lakshmi and all those things. Those are beautiful and any kind of... In fact, somebody accused the Hindus of being idol worshippers, and the Hindu answered very intelligently. He said, we are not idol worshippers, we are ideal worshippers. That was good. But we have to go beyond ideals too. When I spent much time with Ananda Mohima, and she used to say, it is and it isn't, and neither is it nor is it not. What do you make of a statement like that? The only thing is that you can't define God. That's what she was trying to say. You can't define the indefinable. But you are a part of that. You are His manifestation. You are His dream. And you will never be satisfied until you have found your own self, that bliss of your own being. You will go on looking for happiness in this thing and that thing. It was like a man in boot camp in the war, the Second World War in America. And he kept going around picking up pieces of paper. This isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. Finally, they recommended him to the camp psychiatrist. And he went to the camp psychiatrist, and he wouldn't listen to what the psychiatrist was saying. He just kept picking up pieces of paper off his desk. No, this isn't it, this isn't it. Finally, the psychiatrist recommended him for a medical discharge. And when they gave him this discharge paper, he said, this is it, and he ran out. Well, this is what we have to do. Neti, neti, this isn't it, this isn't it. But there is one thing that is it, your discharge papers. When you can get out of this world and realize that this body is not you, this ego is not you, the first thing you need to do when you're seeking God is to get rid of this ego, this thought that I am separate from Him. When people insult you, thank them. When people deprecate you, thank you. When people don't appreciate who you are, thank them. I was one time at a party. I'm a fairly well-known personage in America, but there were people who were more well-known than I because I'm not on the lecture circuit. They were. And I invited a group of them out because we were at a conference to a dinner party. And they were all talking to themselves and ignoring me. I was the host of this dinner, and they were ignoring me. I thought, how wonderfully unimportant. We just don't have to be important. Be thankful when people ignore you, because you want to forget who you are. You want to forget that you are this person. Don't try to become famous. It doesn't mean anything. Don't try to become important. Don't try to be praised by others. Always try to seek the back seat. Try to go the back way. And realize God is doing everything through you. I remember many years ago, a lady came to me after a talk and thanked me for the talk. And I said, as I always feel, God is the doer. And she said, oh, really? As if I knew it was good. I didn't know it was that good. Well, it wasn't I who did it. He did it through me. That's what I was saying. We have to understand that everything we do, when you move your hand, as Meister Eckhart, a saint in Christianity, said, I move my hand and Christ moves, who is my hand. Everything you do, try to feel that God is doing it through you. Well, a wonderful form of meditation is to walk silently at night in the countryside or anywhere, but alone. And try to feel that God is walking through your body, moving through your arms, breathing through your lungs. And that when you see a leaf flicker in the wind, feel that it's you and your thoughts. Feel your consciousness spreading everywhere. When you hear a dog barking, ask God, what have you got? What message have you got to tell me then? All these things. You'll find when you come back, your consciousness will feel so expanded. And don't take pain and the things of this world, don't take them seriously. When I go to the dentist, I never take painkiller. I just figure a little pain never hurt anybody. And so I let him drill away, and he may be sweating with sympathetic pain. But I just think about a song I'm writing or a piece of or book that I'm working on, and I completely ignore it. One time the pain was greater than usual, and so I just felt my consciousness expand over the countryside, and it was just a little point on that countryside where the pain was going on. I could ignore it that way. Try to think that way. Don't think of your little body as yourself. You are everything. And don't think of the pains of this body. When you're out of the body, you won't feel anything. When you're out of the body, you will be free, except where you have desires for this world, you have to come back. I asked my guru one time, he said, you have to overcome every desire. I said to him, even a desire for such a little thing as an ice cream cone? He said, oh yes, because a desire directs energy. And where that energy goes towards something material, you have to go back to matter. So as long as you have the slightest desire, you will have to be coming back here again and again. So get rid of your desires, get rid of your attachments if you want to know happiness. Otherwise you'll have to go, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, get away from my ocean of suffering and misery. People keep going in this world because the suffering is there, but there's always the compensation of pleasure. In duality, you will always have these opposites. And for every pleasure, there will have to be pain. For every success, there will have to be failure. For every up, there will have to be a down. But people say, well, but then there's an up afterwards, and so they keep lumping and bumping along. They don't ever find what they're looking for, and you never will. You keep thinking, well, I'll finally get success if I get this, and then it explodes. No, you will never find fulfillment except in God, which is to say, in your own self. The religion of the future will be not Christianity, Hinduism, all these different isms. It will be self-realization, Sanatana Dharma, the one truth that everything came from God, everything must go back to God. It has to be the same religion on the most distant galaxy in the universe, because everything came from Him. Everything has to merge back into that. You are that. You are nothing else. So remember, when you look for happiness, remember that it's inside. What makes you able to enjoy a sunset? A turtle can look at a sunset and not think anything special about it, except maybe is it good to eat? When you look at a sunset, you feel a happiness because it's beautiful. But your reaction to it is what makes it beautiful. It's your reaction that counts. So work on your reactions to this world. Work on how you react. Don't let anything disturb you. Just always feel happy in yourself. And when people want to hurt you in some way, just never mind. Don't let it touch them. I remember when I was a boy, I was 13 years old. I had been brought up in Europe. I was born in Romania, but my parents were American. I had always thought of myself as American until I got to America. And I found I wasn't. And I was only 107 pounds. There was one boy in the school, 230 pounds. He was 2 years older than I. And he just took it really to heart that I didn't have an American accent. And he just decided he would get me. And he came into my room one day and just began to pound the life out of me. And he said, I'm going to throw you out the window. I'm going to throw you out the window. We were 3 stories up. To throw me out the window would have probably killed me. I just decided it didn't matter. And I just took it. Somebody said later, why didn't you call for help? I wasn't afraid. Just take whatever comes to you. Even then I found that whatever comes, it says in the Gita, whatever comes of itself, let it come. So when I lived with Yogananda, I had the opportunity to see what it means to be with a man of God, to understand. I saw in his eyes infinity. I never saw a consciousness of self. I always saw infinite kindness. I always saw great love. And if I didn't see it, I felt it. So I used to be short-sighted. Now I've had eye surgery so I can see clearly, but in those days I could not. Across the room I couldn't see him. I couldn't see the expression in his face. But I could feel this great wave of love or wave of bliss. It was an incredible experience. He could be very strong sometimes, but he was always loving, always forgiving, always trying to help. You will find that the more you have this quality, you know, even to complete strangers. One time he was in a car in Los Angeles, and he said, "Stop the car, stop the car." And they stopped by the curb, and he walked back several shops to a very poor-looking variety shop. And he went in there and bought a few pieces of junk and brought it to the desk, and the lady at the desk added it up. And when he paid this money, she burst into tears. She said, "I very badly needed just this sum of money, and it was near closing time, and I was afraid that I'd never get it. God himself must have sent you." And he never used those things. They were just junk. He never spoke about it, but a friend told me who had been with him. This kind of kindness is what, if we develop that feeling towards our fellow man, don't think of what we can get from them, but think of what we can give, this world will be a different place. Do you know we're on the brink of a very great depression? And depression will bring war. Is there a likelihood of war? You've got Pakistan here to do something. I don't think there's much hope. I don't think there are 35,000 known atomic weapons in the world, not to speak of all those that are unknown. We're not living in an easy time now. We're living in a time when the world population will be not decimated, it'll be much worse than that. Some will survive. But we're living in a very difficult time. Right now we're on the edge of it. This year may see the beginning of a serious depression in America. America is $15 trillion in debt. There's nothing they can do but print money. And to print money means the dollar will lose value. And when America sinks economically, the world will sink. No, there's not much hope that way. But there is hope if you love God. When you love God, he will take care of you. You know, in Hiroshima in Japan, when the atom bombs were dropped there were two religious communities, Christian communities, in those two cities, living near the epicenter. They were untouched. If you love God, he will take care of you. Don't doubt it. I have seen him protecting me again and again. Asha Praver, who will talk to you a little bit about after my talk, she's written a book of miracles, and it's an amazing book. People she knows, people she's talked to, how their lives, just by thinking of God, he has taken care of them. If you don't believe in God, give him a chance. Don't just say, "I don't believe." If you don't know that there's something across the street, go and find out if it's there. Sri Yukteswar, my Param Guru, when he was a young boy, his mother told him not to go in a closet. There was a ghost there. So he wanted to see this ghost, and he went in. Was very disappointed not to find one. Well, try it out. If you will give God a chance, you'll find in amazing ways how he will just take care of you. You know, after I finished a project, I went to the city of Carmel by the sea in Los Angeles. It's a tourist place. But I found that it was, being August, I hadn't thought about it. August, that's a high tourist season. All the places were taken. The only room I found was much more expensive than I could afford. And I said, "Well, Divine Mother, what shall I do? I've come here to celebrate with you." And I said, "Well, all right, I'll pay for the room. You'll just have to see to it that I have enough money to get back." And I pulled out my wallet to pay the man. He said, no, don't pay me. I said, well, I'd rather pay you now, but I didn't want to tell him, but I was afraid if I didn't pay him then, I wouldn't have it to give him later. He said, no, don't pay me at all. I'll just write you down as a travel agent. I said, why? I don't know, I just like you. I went to a restaurant that day, and the proprietor came over and sat with me and chatted. He wouldn't let me pay for my meal. When you do things with God, you'll be amazed how many times He will take care of you. He'll take you by the hand, even in trivial ways. There was one time in San Francisco, I had feeling the guidance from Divine Mother to return to India after 10 years of absence. And I had just the money to go and spend 2 months, and then I'd have to come back. And as I was driving into San Francisco 2 weeks before I was to depart, my car, something went wrong with it, and I realized I had to get a new car. And I thought, well, shall I get a new car? If I get a new car, I can't go to India. And yet I feel Divine Mother wants me to go to India. Finally, I had no guidance, and I said, Divine Mother, all right, I feel guided to go back to India. If you want me to go, you will have to reimburse me. I will just pay now, and you reimburse me. This was Friday evening. The next Sunday morning, I got a letter in the mail with a check for $1,000, and it said, use this as Divine Mother wants you to. Now, how many people in America think of God as Divine Mother? Very few. It was Divine Mother who did that. I have seen that again and again, and you can see it too. Nobody's special in His eyes, her eyes. I happen to think of God as my Divine Mother, but you can think of it as a sacred crocodile if you want to. It doesn't matter. God is none of that, but He's all of that. God, you have to keep in mind, He loves you. It's you who turn away from Him. People say, why don't you listen to me, God? You don't listen to Him. Even when you're saying, why don't you listen to me? I had a cousin, her firstborn baby, when he was born, had some defect that made it seem she might not be able to live. And she prayed desperately for help. And even while she was praying for help with all her heart, she was wondering, as the milkman brought the milk, what'll I buy for lunch? All these other things. She can't control her restless mind. And so what kind of, if you ask God for things, which prayer is He asking you? Poor God, He must be confused as to what you really want. You have to learn how to ask Him with your heart. Religion begins in the heart. It doesn't begin with definitions. I used to be very intellectual, and I didn't like it, but my guru said, get devotion. Swami Kriyanandaji, who's an incarnation of wisdom, he said, the first step on the path to God, and you cannot take one step without doing this. You have to develop the heart's natural love. You have to become childlike and love God with all your heart. Jesus' first commandment was love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength. Strength means energy. Put energy into it. When you can develop that, then I know one man came to Yogananda many years ago. He was very intellectual. He had a long list of questions. He asked the first question, just intellectual, not important at all on the path. Yogananda said, love God. All right. He went to the next question. Love God. Third question. Love God. And he got up and walked out. And the man years later said, well, even masters have their problems. He couldn't understand. Nor will you understand if you try to figure it all out. I used to try to. Yes, it did. My reason did bring me to this point. It brought me to the realization that I was conscious and God had to be consciousness. And that was enough for me at that time. But I could not come to God until I had learned to soften my heart and love Him. And I found that with love, really this path is all about bliss. When you feel bliss in your heart, your eyes could cry, do cry, because the love of the heart, when you feel God's love there, is so intense you can hardly contain it. But religion of the New Age must also be talked about in practical terms. And so I've said that we must understand God cannot be housed in a church, a mosque, or anything. You cannot think of God as just separate from you. He is you. But you also must understand the teaching of the Gita. My Guru explained the Gita wonderfully. He said that the whole Gita, the whole battle of Kurukshetra, is a battle within your own self, your higher qualities and your lower qualities. This is the battle we all have to fight. The battle of Kurukshetra, as it says later in the Gita, this field, this body is the battlefield. This body is where you have to fight it all out. You have downward moving tendencies, desires for sex, desires for money, desires for material things, desires for all sorts of things. In Patanjali, his first definition of yoga is Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the neutralization of the vortices. Vritti means vortex, not wave. And Chitta does not mean consciousness. It means a particular aspect of consciousness. Mon is here at the top of the head. Buddhi is the intellect. Ahankar is the ego. That's why when people are proud, they look down their noses. The reason is that they become tense back here. And the heart is where you feel love. It's here that real understanding begins. You must develop your heart. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the technique is taught to think of your heart as a lotus and turn all those petals upward toward the brain. And so, in this battle of Kurukshetra, you remember in the beginning that Dhritarashtra says that, no, Bhishma says that Bhishma stands for ego. And he says that side is easy to count, this side is difficult to count. Many people translate that meaning that side is vincible, ours is invincible. No, it doesn't mean that. The Pandavas they're few, 5 in fact. The Pandavas stand for the 5 chakras. Draupadi, you remember the story where Arjuna wins her and takes her home, and he says, "Mother, I've won a prize." She says, "You have to share it with your brothers." And so he had to share his wife with his brothers. There's no record of androgyny. What is it? Polyandry in this country. It's in Tibet, but it doesn't exist here. What it really means is Draupadi stands for the Kundalini, and she must unite with each of the chakras before she can bring the energy can go from the base of the spine to the top part of the spine. This is where yoga becomes very important. Yoga helps you to understand that all outward practices and so on, they don't bring you to the essence of it. When you find God, the energy has to rise up the spine, always rises up the spine. You can be a Muslim, you can be a Christian, you can be anything. But if you find enlightenment, this is how it happens. We're not made differently. We're all made as human beings. We have this spine, and the lower part of the spine and the lower chakras, you know, I was thinking just today about how dogs wag their tails when they're happy. So help me, I've seen people when they're excited wag their bottoms. But their energy as they rise, they don't think down there. Their energy is up here more. And so try to bring your energy. This is why concentrating at the point between the eyebrows is so important. When you feel your energy, you see the ego is centered in the medulla oblongata. And you can see when you look at a crowd of people in the streets, most of them are like that. But you see some people that sort of begun to move forward. Those who are enlightened, a master only works from up here. Same face, same body, same everything, but his consciousness is here. So try to bring your consciousness there by centering at the point between the eyebrows. I know I met a yogi who came to America, and he insisted that Nasikagra means the beginning of the nose. And he went into this long argument. I've heard so many Indians do this, use this story. He said, what is the beginning? What is the tip of the fingers? Here, isn't it? What is the tip of the toes? At the end of the toes. What is the tip of the penis? Here. And he went on like this. And then I said, well, I don't know Sanskrit. I can't argue with you on that level. But it made sense to me that if it is at the beginning, it can also be the root, not just the front. And I went and looked up in a Sanskrit dictionary, and I found that, in fact, it does mean that. This is not where you look. You become cross-eyed looking that way. This is where you look. It's the beginning of the nose. This is where the nose begins. Nasikapuram is the beginning of the fruit, the point of superconsciousness. When you look at that point, you will see a round circle. It'll have a yellow circle around it, blue field inside it, and a 5-pointed star in the center. The 5-pointed star, the gold outside is the astral world. The blue inside represents the causal world, and the 5-pointed star represents the kingdom of God. That's why we who are made in the image of God are 5-pointed stars. Head, 2 legs, 2 arms. We are made in the image of God, and even literally. But the important thing here is to understand that as your energy can rise, as you get rid of the energy going downward, as you get rid of all these vrittis that take your energy outward, as you can redirect all your desires toward God, it would be a very good practice every night, mentally to build a fire, a havan kund, and mentally to throw into it all your desires, all your attachments, and then when you go to sleep at night, on your pillow write Om, and just feel you're resting in Om. Om is the creative vibration of the universe. That sound is what we must listen to in deep meditation. And when we do so, we can merge into that. First of all, you will feel it vibrating all over your body. Then you'll feel it begin to expand beyond that, until finally you find yourself into Om Samadhi, oneness with that Om vibration of the universe. Om Tat Sat. Tat is the reflection of the infinite Brahman in every atom of creation. And that is the Kutasa Chaitanya, the Christ consciousness. And when you go beyond that, then you attain one with Sat, the infinite spirit. Your goal in life, your destiny, whether it take you billions of years or just one lifetime, it depends on you. God's just waiting for you. He loves you, but he won't impose himself on you. But if you really love him, you'll come quickly to him. Kriya Yoga will help you. Babaji sent this technique of Kriya Yoga into the world to help people to realize by scientific means how to direct that energy into the spine and bring that energy up from the lower part to the higher part. When you have done that, you will come to understand that you are that. Now there are different stages. First there is Sabikalpa Samadhi, Samprangata Samadhi, which is a conditioned state. In that state there is still the sense of ego. I, the individual ego, but infinite. But when you come back from that state, you are still in that. You're in your ego again. And if you come back remembering your infiniteness, then you can keep on affirming and going on toward the infinite. But if you think, I, the infinite but huge, all-important ego, then it becomes the last and greatest temptation on the path. And so it is that some people fall from that. I think I myself fall from that a few thousand years ago. Here I am still going. But when you reach that point, when you've gone beyond Sabikalpa, you go into Nirvikalpa, then you are one with God. Are you completely one with Him? No, not yet. You still have to remember all your past incarnations. When you were a pirate, let us say, or a merchant, or all these different things you've been, and realize that it was God who dreamed all those incarnations. Everything was God. When you've realized that and given it all to God, then you go into the state of moksha. Then you become one with Him. And what is an avatar? One who has attained that state of absolute oneness with God and then comes back from that state into this world. Such a person was Babaji, is Babaji. Such a person was Yogananda, Lahiri Mahashaya, Sri Yukteswar, and a very few others, Ramakrishna and so on. But no path can sum up this great perfection. You must be loyal to your path. If you've chosen one, walk the counter first, decide which you like best. But once you've decided on a path, then be loyal to that. Don't divide your energies, because although truth is one, there are different ways of approaching that truth. So when you find one way, if you go several ways, it's like we have your feet in two boats. If the boats separate, you fall in the middle. You may drown. Be loyal to that path. It's only at the top that you see it's all one. But when you found that Guru, then I know when I met my Guru, he said, I give you my unconditional love. Will you give me yours? I said, yes. He said, when I met my Guru, he said, will you give me your unconditional love? And I said, well, how can I give you my unconditional love if I find you're less than a Christ-like master? He said, I don't want your love, it stinks. Well, that wasn't really what happened, but he told me that because I had that doubt. I had doubt in the past. I've overcome it, but I had it. Then he said, will you give me your unconditional obedience? And I said, well, what if I think you're wrong sometimes? He said, I will only ask of you that which God asks me to ask you, tells me to ask you. I said, in that case, I give you my unconditional obedience. And I knelt at his feet, and he made me take the bow. He put his hand over my heart, and for 2 minutes, his arm was vibrating. But in those 2 minutes, I was freed of much karma. A guru without a guru, people say to me, do I need a guru? I said, no, you don't need a guru. Just go on being your own guru. But if you really want God, then you cannot find Him without a guru. You absolutely must have a guru. And there must be some physical contact with Him. It's not enough to read about Him in the pages of a book. You can accept Krishna as your guru, but he has to work through an instrument. When I met a liberated master here in Nellore, near Nellore, Bucciaredipalayam, his name was Sri Rama Yogi. He was a disciple of Ramana Maharshi. And I spent 4 days with him. And he said that there was a Saint Namdev, 2 saints in a village. One was Namdev, the other was a potter. He made pots. And there was a big congregation, big mela, and many people came, disciples of each of these different saints. And the potter, as potters do, went around slapping people. And when he came to Namdev, the other people took it because they thought he was a saint and giving him some sort of test. When he slapped Namdev, Namdev said, "Why did you do that?" And the potter rose to his feet. He said, "There seems to be a crack in this pot." And Namdev was very humiliated. Everybody was laughing. And he went to Krishna, where he worshipped him in the temple, and Krishna appeared to him. And Krishna said, "Well, I can't help it. There is a crack in that pot. Then what can I do to get rid of it?" And Krishna said, "Well, you need a guru." "But I talk to you, Lord. I see you daily in vision. What do I need with that?" Krishna said, "I can give you inspiration. I can give you wisdom. But to find me, you have to have the touch of a guru. Such is my law." And Namdev said, "In that case, Lord, will you help me to find a guru?" And Krishna sent him to a guru. Well, I'm not going to finish that beautiful story because it'll take too long. But the point is, try to find somebody. A guru is somebody who doesn't want to be a guru. Somebody who wants disciples is not worthy to be a guru. Somebody who considers people his disciples is not worthy to be a guru. He is a guru who, like my guru, said God is the guru. He said, "I killed Yogananda long ago. No one dwells in this body temple but God." If you can find someone who has that consciousness, do what he says, even no matter what it be. Somebody came to Babaji, and Babaji said, "You're not ready for my acceptance." And he said, "If you don't accept me, I'll jump off this mountain." Babaji said, "Jump then." He seemed very indifferent. So the man jumped. Then they brought him up there, and Babaji said, "You've passed a difficult test. Now you're worthy to be accepted." But whatever test the Guru gives you, I've had my share. Remember this, God loves you. There was a story of Saint Teresa of Avila. She went through many tests. She was very sick all the time, all sorts of troubles. In her old age, she was wanting to cross the mountain stream to reach another place where she wanted to found a new monastery, and her horse lost its footing and she was swept away in the current, and all her nuns or disciples thought she was drowned, when suddenly she found herself on the opposite bank. Her clothes were dry, and Jesus was standing in front of her. And Jesus said, "Don't feel too badly, Teresa. This is how I treat all my friends." And Teresa said, "No wonder you have so few friends." So don't worry about the tests. But if you are firm in your desire for God, I pray that everybody in this audience will find Him. God bless you.